Super excited to start 2022 with these ladies, and we are going to actually be talking about relationship with mom and culture. If you don't know us, we're a community of first and second generation immigrants, just trying to navigate life away from the homeland, and in a place where we can come together in a safe space. There's a lot of stuff that goes on, especially becoming an immigrant or a child of an immigrant parents, that people don't talk about. We just remain silent, keep our heads down, and just do our thing and just try to survive in navigating this new land that our ancestors aren't usually from. And this is a place where we can actually speak it out loud and share with each other, connect with one another, because it is really lonely trying to just navigate a new place. Like, I just moved across the country. I'm lonely here. I can't imagine leaving a completely different continent to go and try to survive. So here we're talking about your relationship with mom and culture. We're all women here, so it's a really very connected thing with a mother-daughter relationship. So I'm going to have Nuria lead the discussion around this, and hopefully we can serve you with learning and having you understand our experience around this too, so you can start to relate in your own healing with your relationship with your mom or your child.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much, Steph. I'm sorry that I asked you at the very last minute to introduce the conversation, but you're so good at that. So I'm sorry. So thank you, everybody. I'm really proud because it's the first time that I invite my daughter. She's my eldest. She's Camilia, to join us to this conversation, because as Steph said, there is no way that you can heal if you don't create the safe space to have this conversation and to listen those generations behind us, right? So for me, it's really important that she's part of this conversation. If there is a mom listening to us, if there is a daughter listening to us, and if this conversation resonates with you, like, please experience that you are not alone. And there are so many people who already pass that journey. So, because I don't want to get emotional before I move forward with the conversation, I just wrote something like a little thing to introduce why this girl is here and why this encounter is really important. And so, because when I read it, I don't get emotional. So I'm going to start saying that I've been a bad mom. And I'm not saying this from pity or shame, not from making myself wrong, not even from the codependency of the old me. I'm acknowledging this being a bad mom as an opportunity to grow, an opportunity to be the mother my daughters require, and not the one that I would love to have. Yes, coming to Canada represented a brave decision and an example for my daughters. But in my deepest and selfish consciousness, I have to accept that Canada was and has been always my choice. I have two daughters. I don't own two daughters. I have two daughters, 17 and 11 years old. And after 10 months of living apart and communicating daily through video calls, they joined me on this adventure in the summer of 2016. I didn't recognize them at the airport. They changed tremendously. One of them was a baby when I left and became a little girl when landing in her new land. The other one was a little girl and arrived as a teenager with big eyes, almost my size. Mom, it's me, Camilia said. And I was shocked by seeing this young lady holding tons of immigration documents and pushing suitcases while the flight attendant was carrying her little sister. When we left the airport, the mom and daughter's cultural adventure and adjustment started. I remember my 12-year-old reading my essays about gender and women's studies while I was at the college. The vagina topic was normalized at dinner time. Even it sounds witty, the reality is that I pushed Camilia to grow, to become another adult at home. From picking up her sister and making dinner when I couldn't, to explain to me the meaning of the phrasal verb hook up, when I started dating after my divorce. She saw my fears and hesitations when the most is how you say it?
Yeah.
In Quebec was attacked. I asked them to stop speaking our language in public. I planted the fear of being different. From getting my first job in Canada to celebrating the magic of each day, sitting in the front door daily while eating Nutella from a jar. My daughters have been there, always there. The day I finished college, the day I passed my master's dissertation, the day of my second wedding, the months of my depression. One day, Camila told me, Mom, you are so incredible. And the bar is so high that, oof, what a challenge. That moment, I realized I was a bad mom because I already decided I had an expectation on my daughters. Today, I want two girls who choose as free women. I do not want them to do better than me. I wanted to do bigger than themselves. Facing with the challenges of living in a new culture has given us the possibility of new encounters. So this is my introduction because I didn't want to cry. So of course, images come all over. And Camila, we all are mothers, we all are daughters in different ways, right? So I would love to open the floor to you for you to share how was it? How was it from like we've been here 6 years already? And how was it for you? Like living with a mom who was hesitating all the time in many aspects and at the same time overcoming depression and at the same time working every single day or trying to figure it out. How was it for you? Because also experiencing, oh my God, I have this impeccable English and my mom has this strong accent. And that doesn't mean that you feel like, oh my God, I'm not supporting my mom learning the language. But when I listen to her talking, it's like, ah. So all of those things shape your reality and highly impact your way of living, right? So
Yeah. Oh, hey. Just before we start, I'm a very sensitive person. I always have been. Like, I wear my heart on my sleeve all the time. Like, that even made me tear up and it was nothing. So there might be some waterworks, but that's just who I am. Where to start? Well, you know, like she stated, she was gone for like 10 months when we were living with my dad. They were still together at the time, but we were living back in Mexico, our homeland. And I remember like when we all said, okay, let's give it a go. We're gonna do this. I remember like, honestly, at that point, I wasn't even nervous or scared because I just wanted to be with my mom. Like I honestly could not care less about, oh, your childhood, like school is gonna be gone. You're not gonna see your friends. I mean, honestly, yeah, I was sad, but like it was a moment of like, if they're really your friends, are gonna stay in touch. Like, I just was so excited to, get here and be with my mom. And I mean, it is a bit cliche, but I knew that like my high school dream would come true of like the lockers and the prom and the High School Musical type of idea was becoming a reality for me. And I just could not wait any longer to get here. So I think that excitement kind of was what got me through getting here, because it's one thing talking about it, but actually being at the airport and having, your sick, like your, how old was she? Six? Your 6-year-old sister, scared and having to calm her down on the plane and having, because, you're moving your whole life. So it's not like I have one carry-on and my sister. It was like 3 massive suitcases, like, it was a lot. And I remember we got to, you can pay for custody to be like with a flight attendant to take you through everything, but they can only do so much, right? And I remember we landed and I didn't really think anything would be different because I was just like, okay, you go through customs, you get all your stuff, like it's good. But out of nowhere, we're getting off the plane and we get rerouted to this immigration center. Now, mind you, I don't have a phone. I don't have anyone but the flight attendant and myself.
I'm 12 years old.
And I was 12 years old. And I remember we get pushed to the side, and this huge, like, have you guys, if you know who Dwayne Johnson is, imagine like Dwayne Johnson coming up to me, right? And I'm just like, my legs are shaking. I'm like, oh my God, is this guy like the one that's gonna talk to me? Like, what's going on? I was petrified. And I remember as soon as he spoke, he was the nicest person ever. Like, he was just like, oh, hello there. And I mean, that was a relief because he was huge and very intimidating. And I didn't know that we had to go through like questioning, right? Like, I had no idea. And so an hour went by, and, you know, we were being asked questions like, why are you here? What are you doing? Where are your parents? Do you have drugs on you? Have you ever worked for, like, have you ever been around drug dealing? Like, all those types of questions. And I'm just sitting there, like, barely knowing what cocaine is and being asked about it. Like, it was very weird. And then we finally got that over with. And it was so funny because after all those hard questions, all of a sudden the guy goes,
3 hours.
yeah, like after, you know, sweating and being questioned about everything. My sister sound asleep, by the way, sound asleep, just knocked out. The guy goes, okay, here you go. Welcome to Canada. So that was like, okay, well, we did that. And then as soon as, so we're walking out of like the baggage claim and all that stuff. And then I'm not even kidding you, like, my mom is standing there and I was standing right in front of her and she kept looking behind me to try and find me. And I was like, hello, like, I'm right here. And like, that was a beautiful moment. Like, those are the little moments that like you cherish forever, like that, you know, reunion. And then, you know, we left, we learned what the SkyTrain voyage from the airport is like. We got home. She had got us like the nicest like bedroom set. We were literally all set. I obviously unpacked that whole night. We were set to go the next morning. And then from then on, things were very different because she was in college. I was in middle school, grade 7. My sister was in elementary, and my mom also, like, her classes, you know, when you go to college, your classes sometimes are at 7 p.m. Sometimes they're at like 6 in the morning. So her schedule was very different to ours a lot of the times. So obviously I had to step in because who else is gonna do that stuff? Like, my 6-year-old sister can't look after herself, right? So thankfully there was a daycare nearby who used to take her to school in the mornings, which was amazing. And then after my classes were done, sometimes I would leave a little earlier and I would go to her school because it was on the same sort of route. Pick her up, go home, then I would cook dinner. And then, you know, my mom would get home later in the day, or, you know, and then when she would get home tired, she would have an essay to write. And sometimes if you've been in college, you know that the editors can take forever to get back to you. So it was me and her. I mean, I'm not an English major. I'm not, you know, a professional, but she trusted me to take on that task of her mark being dependent on my skills. And so we would sit there and like edit it. And, you know, I won't lie to you, there were days where she would come home and say, can you check this for me? And I would be dreading it. I was like, oh my God, I just want to go watch YouTube and do nothing. And, you know, we're not talking about a 1-page like write-up. It was like a 10-page essay at like 10 p.m. It was a lot. But, you know, seeing her come home like, oh my God, I got a B on my essay. Look at this. It was just like it made it all worth it. And yeah, like there were times where like, I mean, I'm very easygoing overall. Like, I'm not resentful and I'm not that type of person. But yeah, I mean, obviously there were times where I'm like, oh, I just really want to just be a regular 12-year-old kid. Like, I don't want all of this stuff on me, right? But then I would see the way my mom was struggling, and it was like, who am I to complain about not being able to go play games after school with my friends when, like, she's literally depressed, going to school, worrying about her kids. Like, it was just a lot that I didn't really give credit to the way I was feeling about it. But I mean, my sister, like, if it wasn't for that though, I wouldn't have the relationship that I have with her now, because we were forced to, because we used to, oh my God, it was like cat and mouse. Like, we did not get along growing up. It was horrible. And I mean, she's 6 years younger, right? So that gap, it's not like I can play Barbie dolls with her anymore. So I remember being forced to be together so much. We started like getting along so well. And she also became a lot more humble and realized like what it took to be where we are and for her to have what she wants to have. So we, you know, grew together so much better. We, voice crack. We, you know, our walks from school were always so much fun. Like, slowly we start, like, that kind of made it all okay for me. And I ended up accepting the fact that at times she hated the fact that I treated her like a daughter. Like, even at her school, I remember for pickup, I would have moms coming up to me and saying, "Oh, is that one your daughter?" Like, you know, that was a very like, oh my goodness, no, that's not my daughter. But I was obviously put in that position, and not because I was forced into it in the way of like my mom saying, "Here, have her," right? Like, it was not like that at all. It was just what we all knew had to happen. And I was okay with that. And now that I look back at it, yeah, I would have loved to be in the position she is now, you know, where she's like, "Hey, school's over. I'm gonna go play bubble with my friends and get bubble tea." That's okay, because she has nothing to come home to as a responsibility. And honestly, for me, that makes it okay, because I know that the childhood that she deserves is what she's having now. And if it hadn't been for our sacrifice, she wouldn't have that. So I like, at the end of the day, I was totally okay taking on that responsibility, because I see how it impacted her today, right? And like what it was able to give her. And because from now on, she's going to be a regular, you know, Canadian kid that goes sledding after school with her friends, then can go skiing, then can go, she can start working at 16, right? Like, as soon as she wants, she can have it, she can get her driver's license, she can, like, all of those things she can do without being pushed back with time or having like walls, you know, in her way. So it makes it all worth it. Like, it all was perfect. And I'm okay with her having hated me for sometimes, because yeah, I would yell at her like I was her mom, and I would tell her, you know, clean up after yourself. We're sharing a room now. Like, I would, because I mean, it overcomes you. Like, that mom thing just kind of overcomes you sometimes when you need it to come over you. And at times I did feel really alone, and like, it would be like so overwhelming. Like, you make this massive dinner and you're so happy and it tastes delicious. Well, you don't have a dishwasher and you don't have anyone else to clean up. So you have to clean up. And then your sister decides she wanted to bake cookies, and then you help her clean up that mess too. And then vacuum the house and then do the laundry. Like, it was a lot. And so I did let my emotions get the best of me, and I would sometimes act like her mom, but I don't regret any of it. Like, I do not. And I think as she grew up, she understood why I was acting the way I was. Because when she was little, obviously she's like, "You're not my mom. Like, who the heck do you think you are?" But I think now, because we came from that, we both have grown to have our sister relationship because we went through that.
I would like to ask you, like, how was it for you? Like, a couple of things, like, we wanted to save money. We wanted to think about the future. We wanted to do everything following the book and taking care of each step to get our permanent residency. So all of that had a challenging journey, right? Such as creating a space of scarcity where we had to counting every single loonie, where your mom ended up in this heavy depression. So how was that for you? Like, culturally speaking, what was the impact on you? You know, like, if you can go back and look through those lenses and say, wow, like this is absolutely out of my, not even the expectation, right? Like out of of something that I can understand. Like, how did you put yourself in the automatic pilot to say, I don't know how, but I have to go through this?
Yeah. Oh, well, for starters, like, we went from, trips to the movies every weekend and, 3 cars and a house and a, lake house, to all of that, to an apartment where we, like, I found out what thrifting was. And believe me, it's not a curse, it's a blessing. I am so blessed to have found what thrifting is, because it has changed my style, but that's besides the point. It was very hard in the sense of, I was petrified of wanting things and wanting to ask for things, because I knew what it would cost and like how it affected. So, all of a sudden you're like, oh, mom, can we please go get Tim Hortons? Like, I really want a hot chocolate. That sounds so good. And I remember, like, I would be walking up to her room and thinking, okay, I'm going to ask if we can go to Tim Hortons, And I remember just like standing at the door multiple times and just like backing away, because I was like, no, because that money can go to getting hot chocolate mix at the store, which is cheaper and will last longer. Like, I started budgeting in my head like so young, especially because there were times where I would do the grocery shopping. So I remember she would say, okay, we have about $100 and it has to last for about 2 weeks or a week. And so I remember, I would just go to the store and, pick up things and do the math in my head and go, okay, no, I can't get that. So I started, the off-brand cereals and the off-brand granola bars, like all that type of stuff. I started paying attention to money, which a lot of kids don't do. And I mean, in a way, it's a nice skill to develop, but maybe not to the extent that I had to, because then it puts a lot of pressure on your like reality. For example, I started playing volleyball and I was so petrified of having to say, mom, I need to pay for my uniform. Like, how is he going to sit there and ask her, hey, to be part of this that I really want to be a part of, I have a talent for it, the coaches really want me on their team, how can I tell her, mom, I need $25 for my uniform? Like, I did not want to ask her for it. And I didn't even ask her, actually. She got an email saying, oh yeah, for the uniform, this is a fee, because I hadn't had the bravery, the courage to ask her for the money. And so there were a lot of times where she would be like, yeah, we're tight with money, but you can come and ask me for these things. Like, it's okay. But for me, the hard part was knowing what's a thing that's worth talking to her about and what was just something that was going to be a fling. Like, oh, there's new shoes that are, out. I would love to have some shoes. Yeah, but that's a want. It's not a need, like that became a very hard topic for me, like trying to figure out what was worth the money and what wasn't, which in a way is good, because you learn not to be as materialistic and you learn not to want to have what's trending and what's, but it is hard because you're also still a kid that goes to school and sees everybody having everything, right? So it was hard at times, but at the same time, I just always we always just kind of looked at the bigger picture. It was more like, okay, but this sacrifice now means we get to, stay here forever. So it all kind of balanced out, but it was really hard, like, especially like groceries and compass cards. Like, we did so many things. Like, I remember when we would go out, it would be like, okay, pack your lunch so we don't have to buy food out. And so we became very conscious with money, which wasn't always healthy, because you focus all of your activities and everything you do around that. Like, I didn't want to have sleepovers for so long because I knew how much it would cost her. But then we started, finding ways to budget it in, and we started finding ways to get to make it all work. And so I think with time we got used to it, but it was really, really hard, especially because of where I came from. I was in a very different situation, like a very different circumstance, right?
Do you feel that you had to be, um, eh, because I mean, in one hand, I can say, oh my God, I had such like easy girls, right? But how much on you it was this idea of, I have to behave, I have to be a good girl, otherwise I'm compromising.
Yeah, no, that was a fear in my head all the time. Like I remember, like I was so scared of that because I remember thinking, if I mess this one thing up, like if I do one stupid thing, it could cost all of us our stay here. And that's a lot of pressure, like so much pressure. Because when you're a teenager, yeah, the reality is I have people in my school that smoke weed, right? And I have people in my school that smoke cigarettes. And we all know that's not legal for us at the moment. So I remember thinking like, oh my God, what if I'm outside at lunchtime and the cops show up and I'm around that? Like it can cost me my stay here. So I remember sheltering myself a lot from a lot of experiences because I was petrified of costing the three of us our residence here, our stay here, especially after all the sacrifices we had made. So I did walk on eggshells a lot, and I was really scared of doing a lot of things like it was, I think it was just like a lot of expectations, or not expectations, but like rules that I wanted to apply to, but those rules were never given to me, you know, like they were rules that I kind of gave myself because that logically made me feel safe in the fact that I wasn't doing anything stupid or that would jeopardize our situation. So yeah, like it was a lot because you have, you know, you try to balance everything. And like going back to what you were saying about the way you speak, I have never felt ashamed of it because in my head, it's like people having this expectation of everybody speaking perfectly is just idiotic because people come from a lot of different places. Like, in fact, I admire the fact that you even speak English because of how you grew up and like the classes you took and all the effort you put into learning when you're 30. Like it's not the same. My sister speaks perfectly, but she also started learning when she was like 2 and then came to live here and speak it every day at 6. So obviously her development and the way you learn languages younger is different. So I don't care that you have an accent. I couldn't care less. In fact, I feel awful for the people that feel ashamed of it because you should see it as like your own achievement of, yeah, I have an accent, but I can speak, I can work here, I can learn here, I can communicate, I can do my basic necessities, I can go to the doctors, I can do all those things. And I taught myself at like 30 or 40 years old. Like, and I was writing essays for college level when I had only like 5 years of English learning prior to that. So it's a lot. Like, I don't say I feel embarrassed about it. Like the only thing is, you know, sometimes you would, the same way you would ask me to, you know, check your spelling and your grammar, sometimes you would say, how do you pronounce this? So at times when you were talking and I would correct you or say, oh, it's like, you say it like this. I wasn't in the sense of wanting to shelter you or be like, oh, don't talk like that. It was more like, just so you have the like proper way of saying it. Like it was just like, you know,
Yeah.
teaching you it because I knew that you would appreciate, because some words are hard to pronounce. And so why not give you the right way to say it? Like it's not because I was ashamed of it.
Mila, and how was for you, like, for everybody who doesn't know, like I'm in my second marriage, like this transition of landing into a new country and I got a divorce. Her dad lives in our home country. But how was it for you? Like two questions I want to ask you. The first one is, how did you handle the frustration of seeing your mom trying and like looking for a job and not getting the job And when you came with me with lots of documents to submit a specific uh, uh, admin process, or for the PR, or for renewing your student visa, or enrolling you on the school, and seeing how people was treating me, like, how was that experience for you? And the other question I would like to ask you is, because after this I would like to open the conversation with everybody, for you to see your mom overcoming depression or being depressed, wearing your clothes and dating, because your dad was no longer in the picture from in our family here. How was that?
Okay, first thing, it was awful. Awful. The horror stories of the way people can be so just racist to one another was just because, you know, you hear about racism, but then seeing it firsthand, because, you know, you hear about racism against, you know, specific people and you think, oh, that's awful. But then you think of yourself as, oh, it would never happen to me. And then it happens. It's like it completely destroys your, I don't know, like I remember she had a job interview once, like, because she had to look for a job for like a year. So it was a year of a lot of frustration, and it was very overwhelming, like her coming home all disappointed. And of course you're just like, you're upset and you want to be there for your mom, but you also know that that means, okay, we need to stay positive, but then you have to like hide your emotions and show happiness to cheer her up, because she's obviously devastated enough. She doesn't want to see her kids being down as well. So it was a lot of acting happy so she wouldn't get super down because of the fact that she did have depression. And so you had to kind of act cheery so that hopefully it wouldn't make her feel even worse than the way she was already feeling, because she got rejected from a job, right? So I remember like the story she would tell us about employers or interviews and the way they would treat her. It's just like, I just couldn't believe that people can be so heartless and like so just rude. Like I couldn't understand and wrap my head around the fact, like, especially because to me, you see a resume and you see that their SIN number or whatever it is clearly states they're not Canadian, right? So you already know that that person is coming from a different country, and you invite them to have an interview with you to then be racist to them. Like, it's not like she went to the interview and they were expecting some fluent Canadian person, right? Like, that's not what it was. They already knew what they were signing up for, and they still invited her there, and all they did was tear her down. Like, that was horrible to me. And that was just like, I couldn't believe that that's the way, you know, the world worked. Especially because a lot of people have a lot of, like, they come overqualified. Like, she had so many degrees under her belt and years of experience, and then she goes to apply to, you know, a small little business, and they treat her like she's worthless and doesn't know anything when she has more years working than the owner of the business. Like, it just was crazy to me. And yeah, like we even went to, like, I think it was to figure out our healthcare or something, and the lady at the desk was just unbelievably rude. And like, she would kind of, when we would say something, she would say it back to us without the act, like trying to show the way it was properly said. And it was so humiliating. Like, there's so many people there and she's mocking the way you're speaking. It was just like, and the worst part is, you're paying for the service that you're being provided, and they're making fun of you even though you're paying their check. Like, it was, I couldn't believe, like, the way people acted sometimes. It was horrible. Like, it humiliates you and it makes you feel embarrassed, and it's very degrading.
And your mom dating?
My mom dating, oh my god. Well, obviously I didn't really deal with my dad leaving. like it didn't talk about it enough, I think. I mean, he's still in the picture, like he's still, you know, we talk to him all the time, but him physically leaving, I never, because there were so many things going on, I never actually gave myself the time to deal with it and talk about it. But I mean, you could already kind of tell that the relationship was over. Like, so I obviously expected my mom to start dating, and because obviously you don't want her to be like 60 all by herself, right? Like you want to be with someone in your retirement in a new country. Like obviously, I know that in her head, her retirement is like in Canada with a married couple. Like I already knew that she wanted that for herself, and I wanted her to have that, because once we leave, she would have been all alone, right? Which is, I couldn't even imagine that. But it was hard. It's very weird. It's a very weird experience because you're not, you know, you grew up with both parents, you're not used to that. So all of a sudden coming, like dressing up for a date, asking how she looks, and then telling us if it went great or it was horrible, because we had a fair share of both. And like having to teach her the slang because I remember she got a message once and she was like, oh, this guy wants to hook up. And she was so excited. She's like, he wants to like go for dinner. And I was like, Mom, we need to like teach you all of that stuff, because no, that's not what it means. Like, it was a very fun experience. And at times it was sad too, because you see her getting sad about it. There was, you know, the tragic love stories that we all know. And it was hard. But I think at that point, she had done so much work on herself that she didn't let that kind of put her back in that hole where she was before. So she just kind of started learning, and what she would say is like, okay, that was bad, but now I know what I want in a person. And so she started like, things started getting better and better. And I mean, the guys that we got to meet, because we didn't meet all of them, and she was very respectful in that sense of keeping time, and like unless you really liked the person and knew that he was nice, we wouldn't get to meet him. So that was really nice. Like that was very respectful, and I appreciated that a lot, because it wasn't putting us on the spot and like forcing a relationship. But the guys were always so nice, and you know, things don't work out. But I think for me at least, I was just happy that she was getting out there, because I knew she needed that, and I knew you wanted that. So I was just happy you got out there.
And also, like, what I want to summarize here is that there is in this relationship, mom, daughter, and inside of this culture, like there are so many moments where you have to get so intimate with your kids that they have to discover things that in other circumstance you wouldn't share. And sometimes it is what it is. And from dating, to going to the doctor, and because you cannot leave your kids outside of the door, you have to keep your kids there with you, and they're listening all the things that the doctor is telling you. It's tough. It's tough, mainly when you've been having or holding this image in front of your kids, right? And it collapses your reality, or as the role model you want to be. So thank you, Camila, and thank you, you guys, for listening. And I would like to open the floor for you guys in the 20 minutes that we have left, because I mean, I know your stories, but I don't know how much this resonates with you, or if you want to ask something that I am not aware of, please just let's go for the conversation. Right. Gender, I see you.
Oh, I'm so proud of both of you. I'm just so proud of both of you. And Camilia, right? Camilla. Yeah, thank you. Yes, I'm so proud of you for rising up, being there for your mother and your sister, and taking on such great responsibility at such a young age. And I think you're able to see the benefits, you know, like you appreciated what that taught you and what you learned. So I'm really proud of you in just because you saw there were choices, right? You saw there were choices. You saw what was the choice to make that is helping your family, helping your mother, helping your sister. So that was so mature. It was so mature. And yeah, I can certainly relate because, I came to this country when I was 9. And at that time, my sisters were same thing, going through, my oldest sister sponsored us. So it was like going through the airport with our suitcases, and I never seen snow. And she gave me, so it was like, it's a very impactful experience, right? Yeah, and she, had to work, and I babysat my nieces when I was 9, and I cooked, and so I get it. And these things do remain with you, and I get about that frugalness, because it kind of, I don't know, conditions your brain. Sometimes even now you may not need to, you sort of have that habit. So I just love how you grew so much and made such best, like becoming the young woman and person you are, all the stuff you've done. So I'm really proud of you. And in some ways, the generation now who have not had that chance is a bit too soft. It's a bit spoiled and soft, and it makes them unaware of the pitfalls, right? For the easy way they have. So, but yeah, I just really love your story. Thank you for being so generous and vulnerable and sharing it. So yeah, no, I love that I had this opportunity to be here to listen to you. So yes, thank you.
Well, thank you.
Vanessa, I see you.
Yes. Okay. First off, Camilla, I want to acknowledge you for the powerful woman that you are. That story was it just kept blowing my mind over and over again. Like I had so many images come to my mind, images about my mom, what she probably had to go through, right? So my mom, she came when she was a teenager, and she came all by herself. So, I mean, by you sharing your story, it helped me to connect with my mom in that way, because I have no idea, right? Because I'm second generation, right? So I was born here, and I never had that experience, and she's never shared that experience with me before. And so you had just, with your story, you had totally opened me up to like have the courage to talk to my own mother about her experience. Cause I want to know, I want to be able to connect with her in that way. So thank you so much. And your resiliency, like I just kept saying, wow, it was so inspiring, because it showed me that this is a human being who can, when we are put in these circumstances, we can do amazing things. Like, yes, you felt a lot of fear, but you kept working through it over and over and over and over again. And I want to acknowledge your self-awareness too. You were so aware of your emotions, even though you knew that, yeah, you had stuffed your emotions at points, but your ability to be so aware about with your surroundings, about your sister, about your mom. It's like, yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot to be thinking about. So, yeah, you are just such a powerful example of what it means for us as human beings, what we can achieve just by you sharing your story. So I want to acknowledge and thank you so much for this. And Nuria, I want to acknowledge you for, oh my gosh, like your courage as well, right? And your openness and your vulnerability to share right now, and inviting your daughter to come and share this. Like I can, yeah, for me, it's just opened up so many doors just listening to your conversation. And, I think about my emotions and learning how to open my emotions with my mom and being able to have that connection, because the connection that you both have is just so inspiring. So thank you so much. I'll just leave it at that. But yes, thank you so much.
No, thank you all for listening. And I would like to invite you everybody to understand that yes, we are parents, but at the same time, we're navigating through a new culture. And also we have baggage, right, from our culture. So we're constantly comparing, am I a good mom or am I a bad mom? Or is this what is expected in this new culture? Am I behaving in the way that this society is expecting me to behave to accept these citizens? So it's a lot to think, but it's not only, my invitation is not only to think about you as a mom through those lenses, also to open the space to listen to your kids, even though you don't want to, because you know it's painful. It's hard to hear that. Like when I am listening to her, like you can see that still she's taking care of me, right? But I mean, it's really important to open the spaces to help that individual to collapse.
And not to like shelter your culture too. Because I think a lot of people kind of have this idea that when you come here, you have to act the way everybody does. And like, don't speak your culture. Don't eat your foods. When you have your friends over, hide all the stuff. Don't do that. Don't do that. Because you have to embrace where you came from, and you have to acknowledge, because you, at the end of the day, those are your roots, regardless of what's going on. So I think that's a big part of it too, to like not forget your culture and your traditions and speak your language. Don't forget your language, because you're going to regret that for the rest of your life. And yeah, to like talk to your parents, like open up. And I'm glad that you find that like empowerment to want to talk to your mom, because you never know what you'll get from that. And I think she's going to love the fact that you are recognizing her for what she's done.
And I guess as mothers, like really take us, there is a concept in Spanish that is called maternazgo, that is not about, it's not motherhood, it's about caring about others. It's a concept. And I really want to invite everybody to think that the system, there is an heteronormativity expectation of motherhood. When we care, we all are mothers. And because we care, it's really important to open the space for our kids to talk, to embrace their culture, and also to say, I don't like this about my culture, or I can improve the way we express our culture for those who doesn't know what is our culture about. And that's the real motherhood, and that's the real relationship between mothers and daughters. It's not about being perfect. It's about creating lessons for both. So I don't know if someone else wants to say something to wrap it up, Sonia or Steph.
First, like the other lady said, like, thank you so much for sharing. There's a, just that part, just like when you were all sharing about the journey, it needs to be normalized. It needs to be said. It needs to be shown everywhere. Everybody needs to see it. Doesn't matter if you've been born here, and your children of immigrants, or you've been here for many generations. This is a conversation that does not deserve to be silenced or bottled inside. And you see these people with that, like, Camilla's like having that happy face on so that people don't feel bad. We need to be able to share stories like this. So I really admire your relationship. But there's so many issues in there that I'd love to dive in. And I'm like, well, you're almost done. Because like we can probably take a lot of these aspects, Like, I'm hearing about the story, you know, of the microaggressions that come up, the racism that we experience that we don't think that would happen to us, the fact of going into service, I don't know, like a service center. And like, because I went to get my license done because I moved to a new province, and I'm seeing that people who are immigrants need a social worker to accompany them all the time. And I think about situations where I went to the hospital for my dad, or to have discussions before surgery. And they're like, are you a translator? Do you speak? I'm like, hey, he's been here since the 70s. Like, maybe if you didn't speak like medical terms, they'd understand. Like, give me a break. Like, we're consistently dismissed and misjudged. And like, I would love to dive into some of these topics and really invite you again, Camilla, if you'd like to come back to share too, you know, coming in as a second generation immigrant, like, now, like, I'm in that position. I didn't have to go through that struggle, but then how do I understand, knowing that my mom does? Like, us as second generation immigrants, we consistently hold guilt that we should be thankful for what they did. Also, like, thinking about the sacrifice, but at the same time, where do we live our lives without feeling guilty for wanting more? Like, you know, like, if Camilla's like, even though she is a first generation immigrant, I feel guilty to have, you know, like, now COVID's here, you didn't get to go to prom, you didn't get to go and do the things that you were being groomed from your home country to idealize what Canada is like. Like, I could get into all this. I hope we could talk about this later, like the SIN number. These are such powerful things, and really eye-opening, and it really needs to be out there. I hope everyone can watch this. We can refer this. Maybe we should share this more often so that people can really hit home with this story. And I want to thank you, and hope to have more discussions in the future.
Most definitely.
Thank you. And yeah, we're gonna have, like, let's invite people on the 15th, right? That we have Saturday 15. We're gonna dig on it.
Yes, I am totally a proponent of having Camilia back, because I totally appreciated your honesty, your attention to detail, your memory. It's just so, I was having all the images and all the, yeah, your story was just so amazing. And I just wanted to say thank you for sharing that. And you both are very brave. I mean, Nuria, for you to really just open the discussion to be like, hey, you know, share all the things, and for Camilia to be like so honest. And this was very beautiful. So thank you so much. And I totally hope that Camilia is back again, because like Stephanie said, there's a lot of little things, that little tangents we can take, because it was a very, very rich conversation share. Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. It was phenomenal. It's the first conversation of the year, so I'm really excited.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for having me. That was awesome.
And let's create another incredible year. And please send us questions if you have any, and we are more than happy to answer those questions. And this is your community. We're here for you, and we all build up a new land together. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Nuria, and thank you, Camilla. Thank you for those who are watching. Please share this. Again, like, this is just one story. This is a story between one set of mom and daughter, right? Like, can you imagine the impact if we allow ourselves to share more of our own stories, and you know, share with your friends, share with your families, start opening yourself up to these conversations, ask questions, right? And please come and join us on the 15th, on January 15th. It's a Saturday. So it's going to be 10 a.m. Pacific and 1 p.m. Eastern. And we're going to continue this conversation in that group. This is where bring your stories. We would love to connect with you. We would love to hear your stories and learn from you. Sharing is empowering. And so we invite you to join us, and we can't wait to have Camilia back. And yeah, if you have a daughter or a son who you want to bring on, or maybe you want to bring on your parents, right? Like, please, like, connect with us. I think this is just kind of catapulting us into opening like so many different directions, right? And so we welcome you into our community. If you are not part of the community, please join us on Facebook under Living in Between Worlds. Come find us. You can also catch us live every 2 weeks on YouTube as well. So whichever way you want to connect with us, you can message us through those two portals. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. Have a beautiful week ahead. Love you so much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.